It's a bunch of crazy stories written by the Brothers Grimm. And now you're gonna learn all about them, listening to the Brothers Grimm.
Ahoy, ahoy! Students and scholars, friends and relations, welcome to the Brothers Grimm podcast, a podcast in which we explore the stories of the Brothers Grimm fairy tales, including this one, story number 62, The Queen Bee. My name is Phil.
And my name is Mike.
Mike, how are you now?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm very good. I've been on a creative bent of late. I don't know
really?
why, but it's been nice. My brain has been buzzing, one might say. Buzzing like a bee.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, a queen bee, a creature who barely appears in this story, thus making me wonder why it was named after her. However, also the story is short.
It's like Sweetheart Roland.
Yeah, it's so short that damn near nobody appears really, so why not name it after her? And speaking of short episodes, I think that might be a theme for the... It was a theme last week. Last week was a very short episode. It was a page and maybe 2 pages. This is like a page and a half. And then we have a bunch of stories coming up that are all a page.
Yeah, I think this whole season's going to be pretty short.
It's going to be, yeah,
Or at
there's
least
going to
the
be
stories are
short
short.
run episodes. So hopefully we'll actually be able to get on a more regular release schedule because it's going to be really easy to just... However, I digress. Short, but I think pretty good. We can talk about the grade in a little bit. But
Yeah.
Mike, if you could, would you please take us through Grimm's story number 62, The Queen Bee?
It would delight me. There's a king who has 3 sons. The older 2 go out in search of adventure. They end up going feral, and they never come back. The youngest one, who's called Simpleton, goes out looking for them. He finds them, and they make fun of him for thinking that he could live out on his own when even they had failed, which, okay. They go off together, come across an anthill. The older 2 want to destroy it. Simpleton convinces them to leave it in peace. Next up is a lake of ducks. The older brothers want to roast a bunch of the ducks, but Simpleton gets them to leave them alone too. Third is a beehive flowing with honey. Simpleton won't even let them smoke the bees out so they can get some honey. So after a while, they come to a great castle with stone horses standing in the stable and no humans around. They explore every inch, and at last they come across this little gray man locked in a room. He doesn't speak, but he shows them to a feast all laid out and quarters to stay the night. The next morning, he brings the oldest one to a stone tablet inscribed with 3 tasks to break the enchantment the castle is under. The first task is to fetch the princess's 1,000 pearls from the moss in the forest. If he fails, however, he will be turned to stone. He managed to find only 100 of them and is thus punished. The second one tries. He also fails. He only found about 200 of them. And finally, Simpleton tries. He doesn't fare much better, but along comes the ant king that he had spared. So he has his 5,000 ants gather all 1,000 pearls, and they complete the task. The second task is to fetch the key to the king's daughter's bedroom from the bottom of the lake.
Oh my.
Of course, the ducks that he had rescued earlier are more than happy to do that for him, so he presents the key. And then the third and final task is he has to enter the princess's bedroom and figure out which one is the youngest. They are identical, except that before falling under this sleeping spell, the eldest ate some sugar, the middle one some syrup, and the youngest one some honey. And of course, the queen bee that he'd rescued comes along, she tastes each of the girls' lips, and settles on the honey one. Everyone in the castle is awakened. Simpleton has won the youngest girl as a wife, and the brothers get the consolation prize of the other sisters. The end.
Do you have a grade?
I don't know. I gave it a B. It works. What do you got?
A queen bee.
Well,
The writing was good for as short as it was. There was a good economy of words. People act in, I guess, a logical way, but it's certainly not A or S tier.
Yeah.
Not a ton happens. And a lot of stuff have seen before, we'll see again.
yeah. A set of 3, spare some animals, and then they come back to help you later. Which I'm
And-
guessing is probably the AT type.
One I saw was ATU type 554, which is the grateful animals, which we've also seen that like a bunch of times where you go and you help you help the ants, you help this, you help that. And then they,
Dig the hill outside the king's window.
yeah. And then also kind of part of the grateful animals seems to be like collections of brothers.
Yeah.
One sibling is good to the animals and others were mean.
It's like the,
Well-
recently we did the golden bird. I believe it was 50.
Oh, yeah.
57. And that had the brothers, the 2 go off and they get sucked into the inn of no return, the Hotel California, as you put it.
Yeah.
And then the third one, who's the dumbest one, ends up succeeding in all the tasks and rescues them. And then they
The-
kill him.
The one who wasn't an addict wins in the end, sorta. Like,
Yeah, it's always the youngest one is the only decent one.
I agree. There was a strong connection to Story 57. And I don't know if that plays a part in the moral too. This one, they really kind of cut to the point quickly, where they
Yeah,
had a lot
there's-
of setup. In the Golden Bird, they had a lot of setup for the older brothers.
Right.
And this one, it was straight. Well, you've already seen that. And we gave you like 15 pages.
So we'll just cut to the chase here.
You know what the deal is. This is just an alternate telling. The two older ones are mean. The younger one's stupid but nice, and I guess smarter in the end.
But like we've seen other versions where there's like conversation with the animals when they're spared or or whatever and help.
Yeah.
This one there's not even a conversation. He's just like, "Oh yeah, no, leave those ants alone. Leave those ducks alone. Leave those bees alone." And then the ants just show up and give him the pearls. There's no conversation. The ducks are like, "Oh yeah, here's the key." There's just it's it. It's very spare.
Do you have a moral?
Be kind to animals and it'll come back in spades.
I think so. Yeah, in a weird way. Be kind to your waiter or waitress. If we're looking at animals as small folk, I say using the nomenclature of the time.
Yeah.
People that can actually get things done. Don't shit on these people, or you're going to end up like the French aristocracy during the Terror, which is kind of a good lesson for any rich people in the world right now who might be fearing being shot or hung just because they hoarded a bunch of shit. And it turns out it's not that fucking hard to murder your ass. Rich people. Just saying.
Take note.
The revolution is coming and your ass is going to be the first against the wall when it happens. So anyways, or, just don't be a huge asshole.
Yeah, well, there's that too. Don't devote your life and career to the misery of others.
Do you have any other notes?
While I was looking around, I mean, there's not a lot about this one. I did come across a variant it's a little bit different, but it's pretty much the same story. So there's a poor carpenter and his wife. They've got two sons. The younger one is named Hans. He's a nice guy. The parents think he's an idiot. The older one, Helmerich, is a dick. Parents love him, think he's all brave and cool. One day, Dad's out drinking and hears that the local princess was kidnapped and enchanted. Whoever rescues her will win her hand in marriage and the kidnapper's treasures, but there are 3 very hard tasks to complete. Dad comes home and says, "Hey, Helmerich, why don't you go give it a try?" So Helmerich uses all of Dad's savings to buy a sword and a horse and some armor, and he heads on out.
Yeah.
On his way, he kicks over an anthill, he kills some ducks, and wrecks a beehive. This may sound familiar. Helmerich gets to the castle, bangs on the door like the oaf that he is. An old lady comes and tells him to come back tomorrow morning. So he comes back, and the woman scatters a basket of seeds all over the lawn. Says he has an hour to put them all back into the basket. He's like, "Oh, this is dumb. I'm just gonna go for a walk." So he goes off for a walk. Comes back later. The lady comes back. She's all mad that he didn't even try. So then she throws a dozen gold keys into the lake. Says, "You got to go pick these up." He's like, "Oh, fuck that." So he goes off on a walk. Comes back later. She's all pissed that he didn't even try. And then finally, she leads him into a room with 3 veiled figures. And he has to figure out which one is the princess. She says, choose carefully. Think about it. He doesn't really think. He just picks the one on the right. Turns out to be a fire-breathing dragon. Throws Helmerich out the window and killing him. Ta-da! So you can probably see where this is going. Meanwhile, the family's...
Burninator.
Yeah, Trogdor. So meanwhile, the family's like, "Hey, I wonder what happened to the good son, Helmerich." Hans goes off to find him and figure out what happened. Maybe try the challenge himself. On the way, he fixes the anthill. He picks some flowers for the bees, and he feeds some ducks. And then, of course, he meets the old woman, asks if he can try the challenge. He succeeds with help from the animals. Bees end up buzzing around the princess in the middle.
"I like my women like I like my coffee. Covered in bees."
So the veils drop, the dragons die, the sorcerer dies, and they get married, and they live happily ever after. What bothers me about this one is you got to complete the 3 tasks, right?
Right.
Helmerich doesn't even try the first one. And the woman's like, "Okay, well, here's the second one. Give this one a try." He doesn't even try. And then she's like, "All right, well, here's the third one. Let's see if you can do this one." Like, why are there 3 tasks if you're just going to fuck off and then just skip to the third task anyway? Like, what if he'd correctly guessed the veiled figure and uncovered the princess? Would it be like, "Oh yeah, no, you win," even though you didn't even try the first 2?
Maybe it's a lesson for today's modern young folk, well, old folk too, but about college, where you like you can completely and utterly fail the first year and still be kind of fine if you stick the landing, which I think is how you got through college.
I failed my second and fourth semesters. I never screwed up 2 in a row, but yeah. Yeah, no,
Okay.
it definitely worked out.
I certainly did, and it failed out of college completely until I went back to school, and then years later and graduated summa cum laude.
Yeah, you ended up okay.
With a
ended up
degree in
okay.
economics.
Yeah.
Which I don't like saying all the time, but every once in a while I like when we're talking about the economy or something. I like if someone says something and I'm just like, I do have a degree in economics. When I in this particular instance, if I say I can look at some research, you're doubting. But I digress.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right. There wasn't a lot about this one. For some reason, it didn't stand the test of time for whatever. No one cares too much about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we've said before, it's a lot of repetition from other stories and without a lot of meat in there.
Speaking of meat, it's so much so. I mean, like my pitch is it's fine. I mean, it will probably be the best selling of any book that we put out together.
And now I'm intrigued.
I thought I could make a series of gay erotica. I thought
just gonna say, is it porn?
Is it? Yeah, well, it's not porn. No. So this is classy. It's classy. It's
Okay.
written. It's the written word. Okay.
All right.
Like, but super gay and super descriptive. But so it's just everyone's men, and I'm gonna make each scene. The animals are okay. You need something from the bottom of the lake. Well, here's an otter, which is a term for like a dude that's thin and athletic, but has lots of hair.
I have never heard this. I did have to recently explain the concept of a bear to my youngest, though.
Well, that brings us to the next thing. So we're trying to get some honey.
Oh,
Who better to ask than a bear? And then the animal theme kind of falls apart after that. We just have a twink and a gym bunny in there or something. But I think there's money to be made. So this guy shows up in Paris to find the prince, and we can brainstorm a bunch of scenes for why he needs honey from a bear cave or whatever. But maybe we don't even need to brainstorm. Like, so the vizier at the castle just says, "I need honey from that cave over there, and also a device from the bottom of the lake." And whatever twinks have going on, and some barbells from the gym rat or whatever. And then at the end, the prince, who, by the way, looks exactly like the peasant, is freed. And then they find out that the true treasure is the friends they made along the way. and then they have a big orgy.
Oh yeah. I mean, you gotta end it with a bang.
Yeah. And yeah, so at the end you have double bangers and a orgy and that's it. That's really all that I had. It's not great. But again, I think it would be the best selling thing that I've ever written.
That just reminded
no one's buying anything else.
I don't know. I feel like I pitched this in the early days, but years ago I stumbled across a podcast called My Dad Wrote a Porno.
Yes.
Which is a guy and his friends reading aloud erotic literature that his retiree father had started writing.
Yeah.
And self-publishing. Magical.
Something to be talked about for later. Well, then, Mike, if you do not have anything else, and I do not have anything else,
I can't add anything to that.
I think we can call it. But before we do that, Mike, is there a way for anyone to contact us if they have thoughts they'd wish to share with us about what we just talked about?
Absolutely. You can direct any compliments or questions or hate mail to brothersdimpodcast@gmail.com. And we're also on Blue Sky @brothersdim.
Very good. Well, thank you, Mike. And thanks to all of our fans for listening. This has been story number 62, The Queen Bee. Sleep tight, and we will see you next time.
See you next time.